What is going on, people of the world? Excited to be back with another collaboration of Mental Warfare and the Release Valve, excuse me. I am your co-host, Kyle Spain, and again, I'm with my right hand, Sean Howland. Sean Hamlin. I can't talk to that. But how are we doing today, and who do we have the privilege of having on the show today, my man?
We're doing good, bro. Yeah, we are privileged to have another special guest here tonight. We're always talking about the many stresses and issues that we have going on in our life, and we somewhat dive into a little bit of some of the different outlets that we can have to release some of that stress. So tonight we are joined by someone to help give us some more perspective on some things that we can do to release some stress and yeah, so without further ado, we have a good friend, Trisha.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We thank you for taking the time out of your day and joining us on this lovely night, on this lovely Sunday evening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, why don't you go ahead, Sean? Were you going to say something?
No, you were about to say it, my friend. Go
Uh,
ahead.
why don't you give us a brief update on your background, how you became a yoga instructor, what led you to become a yoga instructor, and just kind of like run us through just a little bit of background.
yeah, sure. I've been a student of yoga for almost 20 years.
Oh
I
wow.
started practicing a little bit in high school, off and on, but then um, I got really serious about it in college because I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression, and I knew that yoga was really great for helping with that stuff.
Mm.
So they were offering classes on campus at UMass Amherst, and um, it was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up. And so I dove in twice a week, noticed some changes like almost immediately. And then after practicing for another, I can't do math, it's too late in the evening. But in 2016, I did my 200-hour training, so that's kind of like your GED of yoga
Okay.
teaching. So it's like if you're going to do the basics, if you just want to get started, you do a 200-hour training. So I did that, and I've been teaching ever since. So I've been teaching for about 7.5 years now.
Nice.
Um, and I've I've taught all kinds of yoga, but I've really started to hone in on my niche, which is yin yoga, meditation, and qigong. So,
Oh, so
and
there's
I'm
different
currently
forms of
doing
yoga.
what's that?
Oh,
Oh
there's different
yeah,
forms of yoga. Okay.
there's so many kinds. There's the yoga tradition is a few thousand years old, and it's rooted in philosophy, and
Mm.
that's one of the things that I really love about it is that yeah, you can go through the motions, you can do the poses, and have it be like a workout per se, but
Mm-hmm.
with the philosophy aspect, it gives you the chance to um, kind of go into like deeper levels
Yeah,
with the
understanding.
practice. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
getting
So it's
Connecting
yeah,
definitely like,
body and
connecting.
mind.
hmm
Yeah. Absolutely. I love
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. So back when the poses were first created, the idea was that it was preparing the body for meditation.
Mm.
But now the modern version of yoga is that we just do all the poses, but then we don't actually sit and meditate. So you're missing this whole
Mm.
piece of it, especially like in our Western culture, which is so, um, driven, type A, like,
Yeah.
got to get to the next thing,
Yeah. A to
So,
Yeah.
B.
yeah, exactly. So, it's kind of lost that, but just going down the rabbit hole now.
No, it's fine.
But it's uh it's it's definitely interesting, and modern yoga is kind of based on a blend of two traditional types. There's Ashtanga and Iyengar, and like Ashtanga is more of like the power yoga type, faster, hotter, sweaty, and then
Mm.
Iyengar is like more to do with your alignment and the way you're positioned and doing it very like rigid. So
Mm.
those two came together and now it's created this style that most people are probably familiar with if they're into yoga. It's called vinyasa. So it's just moving with the breath, it's moving with um, just that rhythm, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where a lot of that one kind came from. And then other types have come off of it, like there's the power, there's more restorative stuff. And where I fall on the spectrum is definitely more towards restorative. So,
Now, did you start off doing more restorative type meditation
Good
or
question.
yoga, or did you kind of find that along the way and then were like, "Ooh, this is for me" type of thing?
Hmm.
yeah, so I think I had a pretty typical path to the restorative practice. When I really started practicing, I was 22, and you're like young and alive, and you
Yep.
can do all the things. So I was very much like, in classes where they're doing headstands and like, moving fast and like sweating a ton, just like that really strong, powerful practice.
Yep.
And I loved it. It was great. And then as I realized there was too much of that going on around me, I started to get more into the restorative side because, um, there's a lot of benefits to slowing down. And nobody
Absolutely.
wants to hear that. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to do that.
Yeah.
But um, it's that can be very, very refreshing to practice when you have like all the things going on around you. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, I found teachers that I liked that I was practicing with in Boston, and they were offering more of the slow flow restorative type classes. And so I just kind of fell into that direction, if you
Mm.
will. So, and then the studio I was teaching at for a long time, they didn't have anything like that. So I had the opportunity to teach it, and just bring a different vibe to the studio.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, especially if it's not a more popular version of yoga that people are looking to pursue, you can kind of bring light to that and say, "Hey, listen, like you just told us that there are so many
Yeah.
different variations that of this that you can do. Try this one out too," because I think that that's is so important. Like you said, that so many people aren't willing to take the time to just slow things down a little bit
And
and
that's the
approach.
problem, right?
Yeah, oh,
And
mhm.
that's the
100%.
issue with
It's all
the
just
world.
go, go, go. Even when somebody sets up like time for themselves or a workout or something, it's like, all right, let me go do this, let me go do this. And, it's almost just part of their checklist as opposed to
Yep.
something to where it's like, let me slow down, let me do this. And however long this takes for me to get through this and to feel good about myself,
Yeah.
that's how long it's going to take.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, think about it. Think about it like this: like you're on a train, right? In
Hmm.
the Bay Area, we have the BART train or whatever train it is, right? As the faster you're going, everything on the outside is going like this. Versus when
Yeah,
you
yeah,
first
yeah,
start
yeah.
taking off, you're able to be aware of a lot more
As things
at a
going by.
slower pace, right?
Mm,
And that's what
Absolutely.
life is, and that's what that's the life that we're living. We're so
Hmm.
fast and we're so
mm.
distracted by that tunnel vision. We're passing everything by
It's
when
just,
all of
Yeah,
that is right.
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
you're missing
All of
so
that,
much.
exactly, all of that
Hmm.
life that we're missing, right? And
yeah.
so,
Yep.
yeah, no, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm sorry, what did you say it was called again, Trisha?
So the particular type that I'm doing my advanced training in is called Yin Yoga,
Yin
and
yoga. Okay.
um, it's slower. You hold the poses for like 3 to 5 minutes. It's a deep stretch. It feels really
Ah,
great. Um, I'm biased. I love it, but
yeah.
I've had several people try it too, and they also tell me it's one of the hardest practices they've done because how often do you just sit down in something that's kind of uncomfortable for 5 minutes and you
Yeah.
know that you have to stay there,
Yeah,
That's a
so
you
it's
know?
yeah,
mental
so
workout
it's
just as much as a
yeah, a
physical one,
mental
for sure.
exercise, mental
Absolutely.
toughness,
Yep.
mental
Yeah.
Yeah.
strengthening,
So it's,
discipline.
yeah.
That's
And
like,
you're like,
huh?
it's serious. Yeah. And, you know, you're training not only your body, in terms of like flexibility or, just, you know, it's a good way to kind of, um, it's a complementary practice, you know. So like if you're a runner or if you're a professional athlete or if you're, you know, whatever the thing is, it's a great way to kind of counter train, if you will.
Mm.
And so there's not only is the physical part, but then you're getting into the mind game of like, okay, how much longer? When's
Yeah,
this gonna
Okay.
yeah.
end? You know?
So my question to you is then after what was your mindset then after you started getting used to it? Well, obviously your body starts getting used to it, but do you take
Mhm.
your mind somewhere else? I mean, of course, like thinking about it that much would just make the time go a little bit longer. Like, did you have a different way of thinking when you started off?
So, yeah, I mean, I remember one of the first times I took the class, I was like sweating, and you're not supposed to sweat because it's just a very passive style of practice.
Mm.
Okay.
And they're like, well, if you're sweating, then you're probably trying too hard. So I had to learn how to physically surrender, right? Which, you
Yeah.
So
know,
you were
especially,
tense. So you were too
yeah,
tense while performing the exercises.
yes, yes. And it's so hard to think of like, well, how do you do it passively? You know, if like you think of yoga as something strong, or like if you are thinking of like working out and like lifting weights, you know, you're just like doing all this engagement to be active in whatever you're doing. But in
Mm.
yin yoga, you want to relax into
Yeah,
it. So
absolutely.
when you're doing that, it's like, you know, you're learning to just feel what's happening in your body.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
that can be hard at first. And then the sensations in your body also start to trigger your mind patterns,
Mm.
right? So over time, as you're practicing and you're doing the same, you know, 30-ish poses, whatever, over time you start to get into this rhythm of almost predicting how you're going to feel in a
I was
particular
just going to say, you
pose.
start expecting certain things and you thinking about, all right,
Yes.
I got to this point last time and it was starting to hurt, and you're over analyzing each step.
Yes. But you also don't want to hold on to that. You don't want to
Mm.
practice that attachment because that's a whole other
Mm.
thing of yoga. I mean, we could talk about this for like ever. But, you know, non-attachment is part of yogic philosophy, part of Buddhist philosophy. And so that whole idea of letting go, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, is
Mm.
a
So
huge
that's
undertaking.
so is that the meditation factor of it then, right?
Yes,
Being free with what you're doing, being in that moment and
yes.
kind of trying
Mhm,
to release your body, like you said, to fall into it. Okay. Yeah,
mhm.
absolutely.
Mm.
And I think that's super important. But even for you mentioned lifting weights, like that breathing like relaxes your body. And even when you're lifting
Mhm,
weights, you shouldn't be as tense as you think you would should be when
Mm.
you're
mhm.
lifting weights. And so even when you're lifting, it's important to have that certain relaxation so you're not overworking, like you're conserving
Yeah.
energy
Go with the flow of
in
your
that sense.
Yeah.
breathing.
Yeah, allowing yourself to
Yeah.
allowing yourself to feel how your body's working, like you mentioned. So if I'm doing biceps and
Mm.
I'm just like all tense, I'm probably feeling it everywhere, right?
Right.
Versus
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
trying to be relaxed with what I'm doing,
Mhm.
exerting less energy and being focused on the movement. I love that.
Yeah, and
Love
it's interesting because um, all you're doing is just training your mind to follow patterns
Mm.
because you're going to witness the patterns while you're practicing. and then that lets you start to witness yourself when you're practicing in the real world.
Mm. Start noticing
Okay.
tendencies
Yeah.
of yourself.
Yes. So, like,
Yeah.
whatever you're triggered by, whether it's like your kids screaming at you, or like
Yeah.
your partner says something, or, whatever the thing is, or if like you watch too much news, just all that crazy
Yeah.
stuff, it's
All
like
that negative
whatever.
content being
Yeah. It's
thrown
like,
at you.
yeah. And, you start to notice your patterns, and then,
Tensing up.
Wow. So
hmm
you start becoming aware of more self-aware then,
yeah,
which
Mm.
is extremely important for personal development. Because now we're
absolutely.
able to
100%.
identify our habits and correct
Yep.
them as needed. Okay.
Yep. Yep. So that's kind of how, long story short, that's kind of how I started practicing, was because I knew that if I'm developing this self-awareness and it's supposed to help calm with like the anxiety, the depression, all of that, then I knew that I could hopefully relieve some of those symptoms,
Mm.
and it did, and just having that constant thing there to rely on, whether it was in different form, like different style of yoga, whatever, like it's always there,
Mm.
and I can always tap into it if I need to.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You're not stuck with that, just that one way of going
right.
about things. You can variate when needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Uh, Go ahead, Sean.
As a yoga instructor, do you find that the mental aspect is what most of your do you call them students? Is
Yeah.
that what the biggest issue that they run into, or is it the physical aspect of it?
Um, it's funny. I used to joke that there was a teacher at one of the studios I taught with, and his background was actually in MMA. He was an
Mm-hmm.
MMA fighter, and he was also a kickboxing and a yoga teacher, and he's great. And I used to joke that I would always have his roadkill in my class because they're like, oh, I pushed myself too hard, and now I need to do something slow, whatever. So it was like I always was getting like his discarded students. And but then over time they would learn that if they did this slower practice every once in a while, then they could go back and
Mm-hmm.
do the more power stuff, and they would
Mm.
Yeah.
perform, if you will. I mean, yoga is not a performance, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like they would notice their practice was better, like their recovery time or
Yeah,
their range of
absolutely.
motion overall.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and then
but
overall feeling better about their performance, feeling better internally because you're performing better. So it's all a part of the cycle
hmm
of releasing and unlocking your body and bridging that
yeah,
connection with your mind. Because if
hmm
you're not performing as well as you think you should, and now you're having the opposite effect, right? Now you're
Start
hmm
getting that
you're losing
downward spiral.
exactly.
yep.
Now you've
Yeah.
lost confidence in
And you're in
yourself,
your head.
and
Yep.
then
Yep.
doubting yourself. Exactly,
Yep.
let those voices in your head,
Mm.
sabotage what you're
Exactly.
trying to be great at. Yeah, no, okay, okay, no,
Yeah. So it's um, some people will try it, and they this particular style, they'll think it's not for them because they're not doing anything. I put that in
Yeah,
quotes.
yeah, yeah.
well,
um,
but it's that inability. We're so like this. It's almost
yeah.
like we all have ADHD, right? It's almost like we can't.
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
it's like
Yeah.
we have to learn how to be patient and be disciplined within that patience and
hmm
just sit there and be present. And that's
Yeah.
what the
And
way
there's
the
so
world
much
is.
like, yeah. We live in a world of instant gratification. I mean, you order something online, it's at your doorstep 2 days later.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
you want something, you just go get it. Like,
It's all.
humans are creatures that do not ever want to be uncomfortable. We will do anything we can do to not be
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
discomforted.
hmm
So, to intentionally do something like a yin yoga practice that is going to feel uncomfortable while you're doing it can be really hard for some people.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but every once in a while I get a few converts, so it's all good.
There we
Nice.
go. And I was going to
Nice.
ask. I mean, that's definitely have to feel good that
Yeah.
that somebody like has learned something from your practice.
Yeah, and it's usually after the fact. Like we say that it's a bittersweet practice because the practice itself is like you're like sore, you have
Yeah,
those
it's
like
work.
really tender spots. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
afterwards like you might sleep really well or
Yeah,
you'll just
yeah.
notice like a little more clarity of mind. So it's definitely more of
Yeah.
like an after like the afterglow, if
Kyle
you
and I
will.
talked about that in the past too, how just getting some sort of a workout, whatever it is, whether it's a walk or actually lifting weights or yoga or something like that, what that does for your mood.
Hmm.
And I mean, we've said this before. I don't think I've ever met anybody that was in a bad mood after working out, whatever it was. It's just so freeing and
Hmm.
relieving, releasing all of that built up stuff that you have inside, finding an outlet for it and getting it out every single time. Everybody feels better from it. So it's like,
It's true.
how is this not catching on with more and more people? Like,
Yeah.
I
move your
know.
body, do
And
more with
yeah.
yourself. It's not just for your
And
body;
I
it's for your mind.
it's yeah, and that's the other thing too is that I've never really thought of yoga as being like part of the like fitness industry, if you will, just
Mm,
because of the way I came into it for like the mental health reasons.
sure.
So I don't view myself as like a fitness instructor, like nothing like I
More
really like
therapeutic than anything.
yeah, and it's just more to like share something to help
But I
people.
but I almost disagree. I almost because yoga, the practice
Yeah,
of yoga is something that I'm probably going to start after this conversation, by the way.
great.
But but it is challenging your body in a way that your body isn't used to. And to
Yeah.
be honest,
Hmm.
there is no part of fitness that doesn't require recovery. Okay,
Yeah, and
you
that
can
yeah,
only
that's
be
true.
as fit as you're only as good as your recovery, to be honest.
Yep.
Mm,
Because you can't train your body to a certain level if it
Hmm.
hasn't recovered yet. And I know yoga to be one
Exactly.
of the best practices you can do for
Hmm.
recovery. So, and it's not
Yeah.
easy to do, right? You said you were in there sweating.
Nope. You're not
I
supposed to
mean,
be in this class, but
like,
yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in other forms of
Yeah.
yoga, but it's not an
Oh
easy thing to
yeah.
do. So, and
Yeah.
it actually increases fitness. So it's actually the
Yeah.
foundation of fitness,
mm.
to be honest,
Yeah.
So,
It
It's a
is.
good way to
And
look
I
at it.
feel like just because of like to that point too, I feel like because it has that philosophical background, I feel like it's kind of in its own space, if you will, but it does help in any sort of realm, whether it
no, I
is
mean,
your physical
I agree.
activity, yeah, the mental
Absolutely.
state, all of that. I think it's really like anybody can benefit from it, which is
Mm.
awesome.
Yeah, like I said, it's the foundation of
Hmm.
all movement. Like
Yeah.
eventually, I want to do martial arts. I want to do backflips again. I want to be
Hmm.
able to do kickboxing, like which is martial arts. But I want to be
Yep.
able to do parkour. And I've been an injured athlete for forever. I mean, that was the reason why I
Uh,
had to retire,
for as long as you've been an
right?
athlete.
Yeah.
So as long so you can take that. It's almost like it's like a physical certification that you have, and you can go and try and do anything and be able
Hmm.
to accomplish it to a certain degree right off the bat because you have that foundation. Now,
At
me,
any
if I
age,
were
any
to
stage in life.
exactly,
Hmm.
so if I were to go try and do kickboxing right now, the first thing that they're going to tell me is I need to work on my flexibility.
Mm.
Right, so I can't just go in
Yep.
there and be okay with doing kickboxing because I can't lift my leg up that high versus where
Right.
you it's like, well, I want to take on this practice. I have the flexibility to do it. All I have to do is learn to practice because you already have that foundation.
Yeah, it does give you a lot of different
Hmm.
avenues that
Absolutely,
you can take.
you
Yeah.
can pretty much do anything that you want to do in the physical realm.
Mm.
All you have to do is
Yeah.
put your mind to it, and
Absolutely.
whereas I have to work to get into that foundation to be able to do those things that I want to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's how
it's like a
so
fast
many
track.
people come to it too. Yeah. Yeah, it's like they skip, and I see this with a lot of the athletes that I've worked with, is they realize sometimes too late that, oh, I should do more recovery. Because, like you
Yeah.
said, you're only as good as your recovery.
Mm.
Um, and just being able to help someone who, is a professional athlete all the way to someone who's never done yoga before, it can be
Hmm.
catered to anybody,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is,
all ages. My daughter does it sometimes
yeah,
with my wife
the
first thing in the
cosmic
morning.
kids. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
great.
Cosmic kids, they're jumping around doing all that stuff. She loves it. I know I've heard of people in like their 70s and 80s getting into it.
Hmm.
After they retired, professional athletes, again, never did yoga or barely did any kind of stretching their entire professional career. They retire, and now all of a sudden they're getting into yoga and becoming instructors themselves and getting other athletes to come in because they found that secret, right? That secret
Yeah.
sauce
Yeah.
that, hey, listen, I just found this out. It's doing wonders for me. It's doing such a wonderful job for me in my life that I have to get you guys involved in it. So
Yeah.
it's there's something going on there, and why
Yeah.
it's taken me this long to really get into it myself
Yeah.
is beyond me.
I
Because I
have
mean,
no
Trisha,
excuses
you're
after tonight.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have
But
no
oh
excuses.
man, Kyle and I are probably some of the stiffest people in the world,
Yeah.
coming from people that have always been athletic. Kyle being a professional athlete at one point,
And you know
it's horrible.
what's crazy is I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm slightly injured right now, and I still have so much athleticism. Uh, and
Can
despite
you
my
imagine?
tightness, that's
Yeah.
exactly. I was like, Kyle, get it together. Like, come on, like good, like
Snap out of it.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Maximize your potential, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of us get stuck in that rut, that mental rut, and I'm sure that yoga helps free that up as well. But it's like we get s- we get so overwhelmed and distracted with life, it almost makes us so unproductive that we're just standing and sitting in one place. And
Hmm.
that's what happens to a lot of us. And we lack energy to forth and do those type of activities that are going to be better for us in the future. That's going to allow us to maximize our potential.
Well, it's key, especially for athletes, man, if they can get into this type of stuff early. Because I
Yeah,
know one of my biggest issue was that I took advantage of my youth in a negative way,
yeah,
and because I was always in shape and ready to go, I never did any stretching. I never did any kind of pre-workouts to get my body
right,
going. It was get my shoes tied, and jump on the court and just start playing.
yeah,
And same thing, I wasn't a professional athlete, especially at Kyle's level of things, but I was getting hurt all the time over little things, and that ultimately what led to me to stop pursuing athletics because it was like I'm getting tired of this. I'm getting too old. I'm getting tired of
yeah,
these injuries. I'm not a professional, so I'm just getting hurt for no reason. And
Yeah.
yeah, if I would have got into it earlier and had that mindset of I need to take care of my body now, so that way, and get into these habits and these practices now, so that way when I'm older, I don't have to work as hard, and it's just second
Hmm.
nature, and my body's just ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. There were a couple groups of kids that I worked with over the summer before the pandemic. They were college level football, college hockey. So,
Mm.
you know, those kids. And I would tell them all the time, I was like, you gotta stretch. You gotta do this. You
Yeah.
gotta do this all the time. They look at me like,
yeah.
okay, lady.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah,
But that's what
exactly.
everyone. But
Like,
that's what
okay.
everyone
Uh,
does, right?
I
But
know.
that's even.
Yeah.
I was that same kid. I was that
Yeah.
same person. Like, oh my gosh, I am not trying to do this.
I don't
And
have
and
time
look
for
at me
this.
now, right? And you pay
Right.
for it.
Yeah.
You pay for it in the end. And I was literally just writing in my journal before we got on. And it's like what we talked about a couple of days ago, Sean. Decisions that you make today dictate your future, literally. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
for example, like tonight, if I decide not to stretch, that immediately impacts my future.
Yeah. That
However,
that Kyle from 10 years from now is like,
exactly.
yo, what the hell, bro?
Exactly. Exactly, right? So that's one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
things. It's like we neglect ourselves, we neglect our own health, and we're so capable of so much more. And
Well, it's that
unlocking your body is one of
unconscious
those things.
incompetence. Remember, like
Yeah.
Barry said,
Yeah.
that unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. But once you're able to learn these things, or somebody is telling you and put you on to this game, if you choose to ignore it from that point
Yeah,
on,
that's on
it's
right.
like,
It's on you.
yeah,
There's no
Yeah,
saving you. There's no going back.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
You're just
absolutely.
SOL.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because a lot of people are going to pay for that later on, because I
Yeah.
mean, that's the inevitability of life.
Yeah.
And I see it
Right.
all the
We're all
time.
gonna die.
Yeah, but we're all gonna get old too, right? And so,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously that's the precursor of dying, but I see a lot of people being a trainer at the Y. The Y is kids and older individuals, and
Mhm.
a lot of them in there aren't happy because their mobility is limited,
Yep.
right? I mean, a lot of them have fused up backs and they can't move properly, and they're just unhappy
Oh
because they're
yeah.
in pain and they've
Mhm.
got
Hmm.
arthritis in their knees, and it's eye opening for me because it's like, okay, come out after this. Like I said, after this
Yeah.
conversation, it's like I got to do yoga because like
Yeah.
it's like man, it's eye opening. And like on the flip side too, you see a lot of good looking people that are 70 in their 70s and even also
Oh
80s, and
yeah.
so that's
Mhm.
encouraging
It's
too.
incredible.
But yeah,
Yep.
but the mental warfare of like, because we're all going to get to that age, right? So we're either going to
Hmm.
be feeling good about our body, or we're going to be regretting we didn't do something
Well,
prior about it, right?
Hmm.
exactly. And I feel like we're at the age now, I think the three of us are all the same age. We're
Yep.
at that age now that we're starting to see those changes in our bodies, that
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't take care of ourselves, or if because we did take care of ourselves, we're
Mm-hmm.
starting to see, you start to see other people around that same age, and you're like, man, you're you're not moving too well. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what's going on here? And then, like you said, you see people in like their 70s, even 80s, and not just
Okay.
women. I see men doing this type
Yeah.
of stuff too, getting into yoga and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And if they didn't have, big white beards and white hair and stuff like that, you would think that they were in like their 40s or 50s because they're in such good shape. They look so good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, again, it's one of those things like you don't really pay attention to what it is that people are doing to get themselves to that point. But if you
Hmm.
do get, if you do recognize it, or if somebody does tell you about it, and you see what's going on there, and like we were just saying, if you choose to ignore it at that point on, it's like, what are you doing with your life?
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're,
Yep.
like you said, we're all getting older. Our bodies are all shutting down, and yeah, we got to respond. How are we going to do
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is that it's nice to talk to you guys about this because so many men, I think, are intimidated by yoga,
Mm.
or they brush it off because they think it's like for girls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
You
yeah,
like,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but we literally talked about that.
Yeah.
It's the stigma and the way society has presented itself
Hmm.
and the programming that all of us men have.
Men lift
Yeah.
I'm grateful,
weights.
right? I'm grateful to
We
say,
don't stretch.
right? So it's like I mean, it's about getting in touch,
Hmm.
with yourself,
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
and
And
yeah,
then yeah, and I see people will say like, oh, I brought my boyfriend or my husband to so and so's class and he like nearly died and now he gets it. He understands that it's like he
yeah,
respects me. It's like, okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
because if you're doing like a power yoga class, you're in a room that's heated to like usually 95, 100 degrees.
Yeah, that
There's usually
heated yoga is
humidity
no joke.
pumping. So it's like you're practicing in like a jungle, basically. It's just
Mm.
hot, humid, and then you're using all your body weight to move quickly for an hour at
yeah,
least. So it's,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a
you take a
lot.
couple breaks, but you're not like, you're still just going.
Yep.
You're just going. So, and there's arguments about whether or not yoga is good for like cardio, things like that. I mean, you're not going to burn a ton of calories, but like you're still going to move and you're still going to feel great. And I think
yeah,
that's what matters the most
No,
is just,
absolutely, because I think that's one of the biggest things that people get hung up on is, they think about, all right, I need to get into shape. What does that look like? All right, I need to lift weights. I need to run.
hmm.
They think of the extreme that they have to do, and then it's I can't do all that, or my body's not there, so I'm not able to pursue it. People don't realize, like, there's so many different things that you can do to get into shape.
Hmm.
you just got to move your
Yeah.
body, and there are different
Yeah.
parts of your body that you can move, and now we know there are different even forms of yoga that you can do to suit what's best for you. And I think
Yeah.
it's so I love that you're coming on here and talking about these type of things, because again, it's very eye opening. I think a lot of people are going to be able to start
Have
picking
a
up on this type of stuff. Like maybe this
having a
is
different
something that I can
understanding.
get into. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is like
Yeah.
I said, there's no part of fitness where stretching isn't involved. So I can promise you
Right.
that a yoga instructor is going to be able to move better than someone who's just working out. Do you know what I mean? Like
100%.
you can take
Yeah.
you can
You could
take away.
argue that. Yeah.
Well, see, this is why I want to get into calisthenics as well, because
Mhm.
I always tell people when I'm training them, like
Mhm.
body weight is the foundation of strength. The weights is
Mhm.
just an extra armor added onto it. But
Mm.
you see people who do calisthenics and like stuff like that. It's just pure
Yep.
body strength. Huh. Do you
Oh
know
yeah.
I mean, yoga it loosens up your limbs, your
Mhm.
tendons. You know what I'm saying? All the ligaments. You know that just
Yep.
prevents injury. It
Mhm.
increases durability, and so
Yep.
a lot of like I said, a lot of the people that come in, the seniors that come into the Y, they're limited mobile wise, right? They're not able to move. They
Mhm.
can't bend over. I ask a lot of them, it's like, can you get onto the ground? And a lot of it will be
Yeah.
no. Like, can
They
you get
can't.
up from the
Yep.
ground? And it's like, it's difficult. And so for that, it's like,
Mhm.
right, because you're tight, your back is tight, your hips are tight. You know, now
Hmm.
you've got
Mhm.
arthritis, and then it's like it's no fun, right? And it's no fun.
Yeah.
No. No.
When,
Yeah, and it's with the intention of the yin practice specifically is to strengthen the connective tissues.
mm-hmm,
So you're working out like different adhesions in the fascia. You're also, putting that
mm-hmm,
mild stress on the joints because, you know, our deterioration starts at the joints.
Hmm.
yeah,
And so it's obviously impossible to completely isolate connective tissues as opposed to like not firing up muscle or anything like that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
the primary focus is the joints and the connective tissues. So when you're working that, um, you can feel it. It's that creep, when everything kind of comes back in, and then you can go off and do your calisthenics
Yeah.
and
yeah.
all the other things, which I don't ever want to. I did calisthenics when I was in college, when I was on the rowing team, and like never again. Never again. I'm retired from that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rowing,
no,
that's
but
no joke too, though.
yeah, but that's
Yeah.
awesome, and it's just more athletes need that because it's like you said, you have to warm up. Like being a basketball player or
Hmm.
in any athlete, the first thing you do is warm up, right? To
Yep.
loosen up those muscles, loosen up the tendons, the ligaments. So you're able
Hmm.
to be, so you can recruit more muscles. So you can be higher performance. And so
That was
Hmm.
something that I
there's,
wasn't aware of younger, being that flexibility actually helps muscle growth.
yeah,
And
Hmm.
yeah,
you
it
see a
helps
lot of people where they're
recovery.
all huge and stiff and they can't even move their arms, and it's
Yeah,
all that type
Yeah,
of
like
stuff.
what's the
But
point of that?
yeah, but if you see
Yep.
people that are actually loose and are flexible, you can tell the difference in their muscles. That their bicep is from here to here. It's not like this one big large lump
yeah,
right in the
yeah,
middle there
Hmm.
type of thing.
exactly.
It's a full muscle, and you see that throughout their body. I think that type of body looks so much better, male or female. Looks so
Hmm.
much better than the ones that are just looking to bulk and don't actually stretch or do yoga and that type of stuff to get that full range of motion.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah, and so a lot of times too, I see people will say that they won't come to begin a yoga practice because they're not flexible. That's always like the main reason that people will give. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
just
coming to yoga because I'm flexible. And I'm
yeah,
like,
you can. I
That's
can
well,
me
raise my
right
hand
here.
too. That's
like,
why I
well,
haven't
you
done it
don't.
now. I know it's
Yep.
hard. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. So that's definitely like, that's that challenge. But
Yeah.
that's that part of our mind that like you said, it's just like we're
Yeah.
trained
Gets in your
to,
way.
we're trained to be as most comfortable as we can. And
Mm.
so it's
Yeah.
like, okay, let's
And
not do that because that's a little uncomfortable for me.
Gotta be
right.
Knowing,
comfortable with being uncomfortable.
yes,
Exactly. I talk
comfortable with
about that
being,
all the time when I'm teaching. It's like just getting comfortable with the discomfort and like
Mm-hmm.
because we're gonna encounter those things every day. It's like whether you're going to the grocery store and like, someone snaps at you or whatever it is, it's like the discomfort's not coming from here, it's coming from over here.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
you
that
have to,
external that you're allowing
yeah,
in. We've talked
yeah,
about
and
that
you
before,
have to
Kyle.
like
and
know how
yeah,
to
manage people.
respond and
Yeah,
not react.
respond. Yeah,
Hmm.
emotional management, that
Yep.
EQ.
EQ, yep.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that emotional
So much of
regulation,
that.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
Being able to absorb and deflect that type of energy because you know how to do it. Because I mean, practice. Like it's not easy. I just came
Mm-mm.
into a new awareness myself of just literally trying to, like, you know how people say, take it day by day, try and get better every
Hmm.
day. And it was simply just a concept until most recently. I really felt it like in my heart. I stopped thinking about, obviously I still have my goals and my dreams of 2 months, 2 years down the line, but now I'm actively able to be present in the moment
Mm.
and be happy because I'm actively trying to get better, and it starts with my habits. I'm
Yep.
actively trying to change my habits,
Hmm.
which brings me joy. So it's like,
Yes.
oh man, like I did this when I didn't want to. I did this when I didn't want to. I changed this. That's going to be beneficial to my growth, and I'm happy with that. And so,
Hmm.
like, that's something I'm going to start doing with being uncomfortable because it's something that you have to have repetition with in order. It's
Hmm.
experience. That's what I talked about, John. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your body has to experience enough times for it to like
Hmm.
to be familiar with the process. So you just have to keep pushing
Hmm.
through being uncomfortable, and then sooner or later, being uncomfortable is going to be the norm. It's going to be the comfortable,
Mm.
right? Because you're
Yeah.
just
The
you're
new
just used
comfortable.
to. It's
Yeah.
going to be the new comfortable. Your body gets
Mm-hmm.
used to what it gets used to. Whatever you're
Yeah.
doing, it's going to get used to whatever you're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
so eventually, your body will start to learn it better than the mind does, and that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're trying. I call
Yeah.
it I rep the subconscious because our body is the subconscious, right?
Yep.
And so
Oh
we can,
yeah.
so if we can constantly train it, right? Like so. What's funny is, and I'm rambling a little bit because
No, keep going.
uh, I had this like epiphany. It was just like a light bulb, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the body is the subconscious. I was watching like Impact Theory,
I'm glad you
right?
went back to that
And
because right when you said that, I was like, "Damn, that was a really good point." The body
yeah,
is the
the
subconscious.
body is the subconscious though. Like you literally have to like treat your body like it's your kid or if it's your dog, right?
Hmm.
You have to tell it what to do. Sit there and you need to sit there, right? You need to tell it to
Train it.
do. You need to train it
Mm-hmm.
so
Hmm.
it knows it, right? And so
Yep.
that's like that's a problem with a lot of us in our lives right now. We let the subconscious take over. We let our body take over our mind, and that's why
Mm.
Hmm.
we're not maximizing our potential because we haven't
Mm.
trained our body to be uncomfortable. Our body doesn't want to be
Yeah.
uncomfortable,
Hmm.
right?
Nope.
And so,
Exactly.
so that's the voice that we listen to in our head, right? Because we all have that voice.
Yep.
It's our
Right. And
body.
then it's the
It's our
fight or
body talking.
flight and
Yeah,
yep.
it's our body talking to us, telling us not to do it because it's going to be uncomfortable, knowing that the mind wants to do
Mhm.
it.
Mm.
So it's about
Yeah.
bridging that gap. I love it.
Right. Yeah,
I
and
like
that's
that.
the thing of I think why meditation feels so inaccessible to people too, because like you said, they can't nobody wants to sit there for any amount of time.
Yeah,
Be alone with
And
their thoughts.
yeah,
yeah, and it sounds horrifying.
yeah.
It's like what is going
And
on in here,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. Right.
10
And
years ago, you
but
couldn't have paid me to sit down and just think by myself, let alone actually meditate and try to concentrate on
yeah.
something that's going to benefit me. I would have
Yeah.
lost my mind. Talk about ADHD and that type of stuff. You know what I mean? I would have been banging my head against a wall if somebody said, Sean, you need to sit there and just concentrate on yourself, on your inner self. And oh man.
Yeah.
So
Like, no,
it's,
get me out of here.
yeah, exactly. Oh, it's
Yeah,
so
and
important.
it's I always emphasize in my classes too that we're not necessarily trying to change anything. We're just learning how to be curious and be compassionate towards ourselves and the entirety of the experience.
Hmm.
Yeah, be
Rather
here.
than just like, yeah, rather than, trying to recreate a perfect scenario for practice, which a lot of people try to do that too. It's like, oh, that was that one day where I was wearing these yoga pants and it was with this
Yeah.
teacher at this time and she was burning
Yeah.
this incense and like she played this music, over and
Yeah.
over and over again,
Yeah.
whatever. That grasping is what's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And because there's never, my teacher says that every imperfect moment, which is all moments, is perfect for practice because
I like that.
it's all going to change. It's not like, nothing is permanent. Everything's changing constantly.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
it's up to you to be like the eye of the storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
that's
perfect though.
huge.
That is
Go ahead.
huge because it's like you said, the purpose of the or not the purpose, but the outcome allows you to be more self-aware of your tendencies,
Mhm.
right? And somebody else might be
Yeah.
able to see some tendencies that you're not even aware of, and it's at that moment once you become aware of your tendency. Now you have a decision because a lot of people don't know of their tendency. They don't know what
Oh, yeah.
exterior stimulus, like the environment, the stimulus that we're bringing in, the triggers
Mhm.
are affecting us and making us react in a certain way that we're not aware of. So once we can
Mhm.
become aware of that incoming stimulus, we're able to navigate through it now, right? We're able to
Exactly.
absorb the impact, or just like, okay, well, this is the reason why I got upset. We're able to identify the
Mhm.
Yeah.
problem now because
Yep.
it's like before, this is just getting me upset and our day is thrown off, and it's just like we can't recover from it because we don't know why it's making us upset.
Well, you're not
Mhm.
taking that time to think about what was that root source of what got you upset. And so you're just
Hmm.
moving forward and allowing all these things to compile on top of you without taking
Right.
that second. And, like we were saying before, right, Trisha, about just taking that second to slow things down,
Mhm.
find that self-awareness of what you have going on. And then, a lot of times once you're able to recognize that, it's almost like oh, okay, that's what that was about. All right,
Yeah.
now let me go forward
Yeah.
from
Let
here.
me put it back. Let me put it
Yeah.
past us. But I wanted
Then
to
you
ask
open
you,
up a
Trisha.
deep-seated issue.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a
exactly.
childhood trauma.
So I wanted to ask you, Trisha. Like,
Yep.
I imagine that you're able to handle, outside, environmental triggers a lot better than the average person with your practice. But what do you, is yoga your source and your method of release? Like, what do you do when something has
Mm.
triggered you and you're in that moment? Like, do you use yoga for it, or do you use any other practices to try and release that energy, in a healthy way?
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, just honestly, the idea of just being curious about something is kind of what helps me stay in the moment. Like in practice, we're getting curious about the pose, what's happening in our body and in our mind. And then, like, if something happens in my day to day, I try as best as I can. I'm still human.
Of course,
Just
Absolutely.
to
every day.
take a breath, right? Just take a deep breath and maybe just ask a question that
Mm.
gets more information about
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yes. See, but a lot of people
You
don't do
know,
that, and I love that. A lot of people like,
Yeah.
what am I upset about? Why am I upset about it? And
What's going
how?
on right
Mhm.
now?
Yeah, exactly,
Mhm.
and how can I resolve the issue? And that's the
Yeah.
first step. That's the first step
Yeah.
of trying to immediately reverse those emotions, because once we get in those emotions, it's hard to recover from it a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
you're
times.
gone.
There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah, you
It's
just
coming
spiral
back.
away.
This day is done.
Yeah. Yeah, all over.
Try
Yeah,
again
and
Absolutely.
I think
tomorrow.
it's especially like, I'm home with the kids. I teach my classes. My husband works two jobs to, make everything work. And a lot of the times we're both like very stressed. And I
Yeah.
mean, you guys know, um and it's really easy to just take something personally. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but what, we're trying to do is just like, can we ask just one more question about what you said before we like jump down each other's throats about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
huge. That's awareness. That's
We talked
Yeah.
about
And
that. I think it was even last night. Maybe Kyle was, not being aware that other people have things going on too, and we're so caught up in what we have going on that anytime anything comes up with somebody else, we take it as a deliberate attack towards us,
yeah.
yep.
not realizing that they're just that's just how they're responding because they're so caught up in what they have going on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
again, if we're all able to, if more of us are
Emotional
able to take
awareness.
that,
That's
Hmm.
exactly,
emotional
get more
awareness.
emotional awareness, be more self-aware of that. Again, that we have things going on, that other people have things going on, and practicing that empathy, like you were talking about before, Trisha. That
Yep.
we're all going to start getting a better understanding of each other and being able
Exactly.
to help each other through
Hmm.
those times
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Trisha, it's never ending. We're always evolving,
every day.
and
Hmm.
we're always changing. We're affected by different events and incidents and
Hmm.
whatever happens in our life that changes our thoughts, feelings, and perspective on things. That is important to have that emotional awareness so we can communicate and express those feelings, so we can have a
Yeah.
better understanding with our partner, right? And
Yeah. And
Exactly.
that's the thing. It's like just expanding your heart and having that compassion.
yeah,
Easier
yeah,
said than done, right?
absolutely. It's a
Yeah. Oh yeah.
practice. It's
Well,
a
that's why
Yeah.
practice,
we're
though.
here.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Lifetime.
Yeah,
Lifetime practice.
yeah. Does
Absolutely.
your husband do yoga, Trisha? Oh.
He's
Uh-oh.
I love him.
Hopefully he's listening.
Yeah. Before kids, he would come to class every once in a while. I'd have to like beg him, but he I give him advice every once in a while of like,
Hmm.
oh, if your back hurts, try this. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll get right on that.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, see,
That's
okay,
funny.
but
But it's like very gentle nudges,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no,
Baby
absolutely.
steps.
and then
But
I told you so.
yeah, right, man.
Yeah.
But what you're doing, Trisha, is amazing. You're serving people. You're trying to aid people and bring them to that self awareness in yoga through your practice of doing yoga because it's so important
Hmm.
for all of us in the world to be aware of ourselves and so we can grow and so we can change the world and let it be a better place. Because if we're all
Yep.
on this journey, on this quest of personal development and trying to better ourselves on the daily, the world is going to be a better place because we're going to be happier internally in general.
Hmm.
Because
Yep.
hurt people, and a lot of us don't
Hmm.
understand why we're hurting. And being able
Yep.
to get in touch with our programming, our tendencies, will allow
Hmm.
us to grow. Because it's like, okay, well, this is what's hurting me. This is what I was doing, and it kind of was hurting me. If I can change that, now you're able to have that self awareness, so you can change those things that are hindering you from being your best selves. Because we're all capable of um, just the sky's the limit,
So
right?
much.
And
Yep.
and it's such a cliche word, but I believe in it wholeheartedly. And we're capable of so many things, and we just have to, like we talked about, train our body and make our body
Hmm.
believe and get used to the fact that we can accomplish great things.
Hmm. Yeah.
Training the body
And
and the mind.
Yeah, it's
and I
bridging that connection.
yeah, and I not to get too like off topic, but I always kind of get in my head of like, how I can, be a good activist, be a good example to my kids, whatever. And I don't know who said it. I've seen it many places, but um, being a good activist starts at home and just
Mm.
being an example for my kids for our close family, friends, and whoever. But just knowing very, very real sense that we're raising the next generation. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
let's
And
get
they're
it
I'm
watching
not
together.
ready.
us, and
I'm not ready.
yeah, exactly. No, and we've talked about that before. That's a good point because they are watching us, and if
Yeah.
Yeah.
we aren't, if we're not being our best selves, and we've talked about this before, right,
Hmm.
Kyle? If we're not able to be our best selves, then we're not able to give them everything that they need in order to
Hmm.
grow. And with that, they're also picking up those bad tendencies that
They
we're
are.
showing them,
They are.
that
And
Oh yeah.
this is
um,
how you handle things, this is how you go about it, and they don't know the difference of, well, maybe mommy and daddy isn't handling things the best way. They're just seeing how you're handling it, picking it up, and adopting that new behavior going
yeah.
Yep.
forward.
Yeah.
And
What's
Yeah.
crazy
See.
is that like when you're trying to discipline a kid and you're talking to your kid in a way that's stressful, right? Uh,
Hmm.
a lot of the time, like they don't respond the best way to it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I want you to do this, this, and that, and there's a reason why. And my tone might be a little bit elevated, but it's like sometimes that sometimes there's no response. Sometimes there's no reaction to what you're saying, but they're absolutely internalizing it because it was earlier today. Like my daughter and my son were playing. They're playing with this new dollhouse that my daughter got with, and they're doing their imaginary talking, and they're like, no, don't do this, and it was like a page out of my book. And I was like, okay, so you were listening. I was like, I gotta.
Yeah.
So you did hear
Like, uh-oh.
that. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so you did learn that. You just don't want to apply it
Hmm.
for yourself.
You
You
just
just want to
ignored
apply.
it.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
want to apply it to
exactly.
Yeah.
something else. So it
Yeah.
was very apparent to me. It was like, okay, well, like I definitely have to be more careful, because
Hmm.
I may not, it may not seem like they didn't retain it, but they sure did. They learned it.
They
Yeah.
They learned it for
100%.
Yeah.
sure.
My son is 3.5, and I had that very first moment with him like a few weeks ago, and I didn't know whether to cry or to be so proud, but I was
Yeah, it's a
I
proud parent
was
moment.
flustered about something, and he goes, "Mommy, take a deep breath." And I was like, and I was like,
You're
"I'm so
right.
You're
proud
right.
of
You're
you."
right.
Thank
You're
you.
right. Yes.
And I'm like, okay, well, at least he has a coping mechanism.
Yeah,
There you
So,
go.
exactly.
You're
And at
teaching
I
such
them
a
was
right. You're
young
like,
teaching
age
them
okay,
too.
exactly. Teaching them how to release already.
yeah,
Man,
yep,
that's
That's it.
awesome.
hope so. We need more men like that, like you guys,
Yeah.
and so
Oh, I appreciate
here's to
that.
Yeah,
hoping.
definitely appreciate
Mhm.
Yeah,
that. But like you said, we're coaching the next generation, and the cycle has to
no
end
pressure.
here, right? We have to
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
like,
No pressure.
and we talked about this yesterday, Sean. Like, we're in a generation now to where we have an opportunity to break the cycle, and like the
Yeah.
world is just getting crazier, and so it's more adamant now than it ever was before that we got to coach our kids and trying to prepare them for the world. And
Yeah.
Hmm.
there's no better way than teaching them how to cope.
Yep.
How to release.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Huge, because
That's
life
all
is going
we
to
can
come at
do.
you no matter what.
Every day.
And
Yep.
one of my favorite quotes is, if you can't control the situation around you, control how you respond to it, and that's where your power
Yep.
is. So if you
Yeah,
can
Hmm.
have a great coping mechanism to no matter what is coming at you,
yeah,
Hmm.
you're untouchable.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And that's it. That's doing the best we can, you know.
yeah. I mean, but that's
Um,
it though. But that, I mean, that's the skills that we all need to learn is to be
yeah.
able to receive incoming stimulus, being able to man. We talked about emotional regulation,
Hmm.
being able to manage it, and then when we get stirred up, being knowing how to release it. Because now we're aware.
Yep.
We're sticking with because a lot of us don't have that method. A lot of us don't know how to handle our emotions. A lot of us aren't aware of what's coming at us. And that for
Hmm.
that we don't know how to deal with it. We explode. We internalize, and now
Yep.
we're feeling depressed and we're not our best selves. Low confident. I mean, low confidence, low self esteem, and that cycle continues.
Yeah.
That cycle
Hmm.
continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw yesterday that the best form of exercise that you can do is just to go for a walk. So, like,
Simple.
if you don't know
Yeah.
where to start and you feel like you have to go run a marathon or you have to be a bodybuilder tomorrow or whatever it is,
Yeah.
just go for a walk. Go
Yeah.
put your feet in the
Really.
grass. Go get some
Yeah.
chickens, right, Trey?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
And go for a walk. Like, because
yeah.
just that starting point, it's gonna get you to anything else that you want,
Yeah.
and
That-
you got to start somewhere.
yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say
You
that you got to
have
start
to.
somewhere.
Have to,
Yeah.
and then just build. I think that's a lot. The problem and the issue a lot of us as well is we want the 5 years from now. We want the body 5 years from now, and
Hmm.
we get to go
Right
into that
now.
exactly. We want it
Yeah.
now. And he's like,
Order it
he's
on
like, I want it.
Amazon.
I want it.
Yeah. I need
Free
that speedy
Let me get this body.
delivery.
Let me order this body on Amazon. Right? And I can that kind of like cycles back or circles back to what I was saying before is being able to enjoy getting better on a daily because now I know what 5 years is going to look like because of what I'm doing now or trying to do. We're all human and life is going to happen because the enemy attacks. But constantly working on those goals, those dreams of wanting to be free and
Hmm.
I've always told my wife too. It starts with mobility. It starts
Hmm.
with mobility, Trisha. That's my key to success, right?
Yeah.
I've been tied up in all these kind of projects. I know that unlocking my body is to bridge to unlocking my mind or building that mind and body connection is the key
Hmm.
to unlocking everything. So.
Yeah, and
Uh,
so much of that stress lives right
Yeah,
there.
in the body.
So,
Yeah,
hmm,
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I know I learned a lot
yeah.
today. This was empowering.
Yeah.
This was
Awesome.
empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah, God
Yeah.
is great because he's right on time with everything, and this is a part of the quest. Part of my quest of trying to be a better person just in general. And I thank you, like I said, for taking the time going on here and expressing, your feelings and your method of release because this is just going to help me, and I hope everyone else that's watching, grow, heal, and grow, release that stress and allow because the stress is
Yeah.
the anchor for all of us, right? It's the
Hmm.
anchor that's our hinder, right? That's what hinders us from being our best selves is
Hmm.
that the stress hits, and if we are able to release it, it just sits there and just anchors us. As just
Yep.
festers as well too. There's
Exactly. Oh,
multiple,
yeah.
yeah. There's multiple effects,
Oh yeah.
right? So um, that about wraps up our
Yeah.
time. Patricia, again, we thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on and sharing with us because that's knowledge. All of
Yeah.
us need
Thanks
to
for
be,
having me.
yeah, absolutely. All of us need to be open to learning. Because it's for our future, for our best self.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Trisha, so if anybody is looking to follow your journey with this or get into doing yoga with you,
Yin
where can
yoga.
they find you? Yeah, yin yoga especially.
Yin yoga,
Where can they
baby.
find you? How can they get in contact with you?
So I'm currently teaching at a studio in Sharon, Massachusetts. It's called Red Oak Yoga. I can send you the info if you want to. You can tag it in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
and mostly, yeah, just the 2 classes a week right now as I settled back into life with 2 babies.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
So and then private sessions as well. So
Awesome.
nice.
group classes, private sessions, and yeah, that's in Sharon, Mass. So
Awesome. No, like Kyle said, I'm,
yeah,
I'm I would be a fool to not get into yoga myself, especially after this conversation. It
Yeah,
was something that I was kind of I guess on the fence about
Yeah, this was that
for
push.
no reason.
This
You know,
was that
yeah,
push I
I'm gonna
needed.
check on you.
Yeah,
yeah, no,
absolutely. Hey,
absolutely,
hold us accountable, Trisha. Hold us
I
accountable.
will.
for sure.
You
Absolutely. I'm
don't
like,
want
oh,
me to
oh,
hold you accountable because
please. Yeah.
I
Coach Trisha's on my ass. I was like, oh,
Time to go. I love it.
I gotta get my
can't put
work
her
in.
away.
Oh, that's
Again,
awesome.
we
Yeah,
That's
appreciate
but
it.
awesome.
come in the
Absolutely.
studio anytime, and you know,
Definitely.
it's all good. So
Absolutely. Well,
yeah,
like normal people, comment, share, dive in, let us know what you thought. I'm sure there's people out there that can connect with yoga, and if you aren't connected with yoga, you need to get connected with yoga because I just know that it's a part of unlocking our best selves, people.
Absolutely. All right. Till next time. Thanks, everybody.